Alan Playford, welcome. Absolute pleasure to meet you in person.
You too, Michael.
Look, I've always known about you, and I hadn't read your book until only last weekend, and I've got to say, it blew my mind. Did you get that same sort of reaction?
We have had that reaction, yeah.
I mean, what's the sort of, what did people say? Because again, like some of the chapters, what I found about the book is that, you get some books where there's some certain chapters that stand out, and you go, oh, I love that chapter. I loved every chapter.
Yeah, well, that's a take on it I haven't heard, but not put like that. But let me explain that my colleagues whom I work with said, we didn't realise you'd done so much. So when I came home from these places, I didn't say a word. I just, I wasn't treated well, and my reaction was just to keep it to myself.
Yeah.
And so when the book came out, they said, "Rube, we just had no idea that you'd done this, you know."
Apart from colleagues, was it family as well? Were a lot of family surprised by it?
Family, well, it broke up my family.
Yeah.
Rwanda in particular.
Yeah.
So family had mixed reactions to it, but basically they said it was time that the truth was told. So
when looking at that book, it's almost like it's movie worthy.
And
I know Brody, right-hand man here, he loves making movies, and I reckon after this podcast, Brody will come to you and go, "Man, we need to do something."
Well, the chap came to us, and he was a script writer, and he had read the book, and then when he presented the book on a Zoom hookup, the book was itemised in blue and yellow tape. Remember that, love? Right down the outside of when he wanted to sort of make a production out of it. And he said, I've split it up into what we can afford and what we can't afford. We can't afford Africa, but we can afford Australia.
Well, if the movie was made, who would play Alan Playford?
Oh, who did they say? Eric Banner.
Eric Banner.
Yeah.
I was going to say Robert Redford. And before we continue, you constantly.
Oh,
who was this person you were speaking to over here?
My lovely wife, Paulina. It's
Hello.
my guiding light.
Feel free to talk back and forwards if it helps the answers, or some things you might forget. I don't know.
Yeah, it should be good prompt.
Or some things you don't want to remember.
Well, you've got to come to an accommodation with yourself over that. If you're going to tell this story, then you've got to be prepared to confront the past, you know.
Well, just staying on that book, Through the Rubble, was it cathartic for you?
Very, very, particularly when Penny Keogh, the author, got hold of me to... she produced 2 books for the ambulance service, their 125th anniversary, and the book on the helicopters, the advent of the choppers in the ambulance service.
Yep.
And as she read through those, I kept popping up, and she thought, gee whiz, I've got to collar this fella and see if I can pick his brains for a bit more.
Yeah. And
there was a hill in Tumbarumba where we were working, my wife and I, with Blaze Aid. And this is in 2020, I think. And the chap came along and said, we put all the phones there because we're out in this godforsaken paddock pulling out posts and fence posts. He said, your phone keeps, but you won't get any coverage here. You've got to climb that hill there, and maybe you'll get reception up there. So I climbed up the hill just to have a break, and engaged the phone, and Penny Keogh's on the other end, and she said, look, you don't know me, but I've researched you and I'd like to write your book.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'll have to discuss that with my wife and see where I am. So it took 4 years, and here it is.
Wow. And we're going to talk about parts of that book throughout this podcast, but also just when you were talking to Penny, the author, was there times when you were telling us something and you're more fond of something else, and she's probably going, oh, writing this down, going, that's another chapter.
Look, she was patience itself, and she said later on she knew when she touched a chord and it was time to back off,
Yeah.
or it was time to sort of accelerate and draw out the story that was being contemplated. But she said I had to be, and she was, true to her word. She's one of those ladies that could sense your, the fact that you're on the edge.
Yeah.
And knew when to back off.
I know that. I know the exact feeling. Just in doing some of the stories I've done, where I know how far to push someone and know when just to reel it back in again and go, I'm just going to play that down the line a little bit more at the moment.
Well,
Probably not ready yet.
She was a past master at doing just as you described. Yeah.
There's so much of your life to talk about. Your groundbreaking career spans over 40 years. You're a trailblazer in the field of paramedicine. You helped establish the now iconic Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service. You captured worldwide attention for your heroics at the time of the Newcastle earthquake in 1989. You served in conflict zones in Rwanda, East Timor and Solomon Islands. You saved countless lives in the 2003 Canberra bushfires. That's just a smidgen of the journey. Do you accept that you're a hero?
It doesn't settle well, as my wife will say.
Not all superheroes wear capes.
No, on TV they do, but she sort of goes crook when I wear that around the house.
Yeah. But isn't it, the term hero and legend, I mean, or bravery, I think is used far too often, especially for sporting identities, but I've always used those sort of words for doctors or first responders, anyone where their job saves lives. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think I'm getting nods over here. So I do comment when sports come into it or politics and use that term, because I don't think it sort of quite fits.
Yeah.
Because they don't get the essence of a split-second decision which can end up in your death. So I don't think a sporting person gets that, or a political sort of entity.
Yeah. Before we get into your incredible life, I was going to say we should rename this Incredible Lives to Unbelievable Lives for yours. But what are you doing now with yourself?
I was up last week actually at work, and they've engaged me. I've been there for a long time, but I am up in the Bowen Basin and working on some of the projects they have up there, and then it's morphed into training of the upcoming paramedics from university and how they filter and assimilate into paramedicine and their practical skills in particular. So I'm sort of re-energising that sort of focus on them.
It sounds like you're someone that just likes to be doing something all the time. Will you ever retire?
Yeah, I'm under great pressure to retire.
From the lady on the right side of me. You seem like someone that I mean, again, can't keep still. But is that important for you after what you've done in your life to still have a focus some way?
I definitely think so, because I think I've been accused of having ADHD in my young life and what have you. So I didn't accept it at first, but I guess there's an element of truth to it. And but it morphs into lifestyle. And if you just sit around and become a couch potato, then things are going to end fairly shortly. So you've got to keep your brain active and your body active. But
in these days, if you were diagnosed with ADHD, they'd be giving you some sort of Ritalin or something that would subdue this urge to do things like this. So thank God there wasn't these sort of things back when you were young.
To slow you down.
Isn't it so? You see some of these kids are bouncing off walls and, we need to subdue him, we need some medication. But you'll find that people with ADHD, they turn out to be quite brilliant in certain ways.
Well,
focusing.
Yeah, I think if you're in such a profession that is finding its way through medical science, you've got to be prepared to come up with ideas, pursue those ideas, Some work and some don't. And I loved coming up with ideas, and those ideas have proved effective in the long run.
I was in a local hospital recently. There was visiting a loved one, and in the emergency department, and I saw paramedics coming in and out like a steady stream. People had bad injuries. There were some people that were police escorted in. There was people trying to get up and run, and it was bedlam. I thought, geez, I couldn't do this job, especially with so much, with drugs these days. Do you look now and you sort of think there's many more variables now to what there was when you first started back in the day?
Yeah, I think in those days there was no such thing as bed block. Bed block has been a sad addition to bogging down ambulance services. And I was talking to a paramedic not long back, and he said he was from Micah in Melbourne, and he said from the bottom of Australia to the Cape, bed block is now inherent in every service. And it comes because the reason it was never there before, and I'll be quite frank, is that they're trying to blame this in the hospital and that in the hospital, and the worst job's got to be the poor old triage nurse in the John Hunter, for instance. But the truth is that because people have been left at home in the past and then have subsequently died, with the government turning around and said, everyone will go.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have an ambulance contingent that's capable of taking someone who's trying to pull the wool over and someone who's had a cardiac arrest, the two extremes.
Yep.
How do you keep enough people in reserve to cater for both elements? And you can pick the areas they come from, and they'll be bored at home watching movies and whatever, and then say, I wonder what's happening up the hospital. What can I go up and treat it as a taxi?
Yeah.
And therefore that taxi has to take them up because of this legislation's been passed. Everyone will go.
Yeah.
And so these people arrive at the hospital where they're desperately busy, appealing to a triage nurse to work them out based on the lie they've told. And so she's got no alternative to say, look, I want you to wait in the waiting area. And you two ambos stay there as a guarantee that the person will stay. And then we'll work through our load and finally get to that person. Now, that ambulance can't move. And that's why you see up the John Hunter, a dozen ambulances parked out the front in bed block, or as they call it, ramping. And the truth's got to be told, because the hospital has all these genuine facilities that are trying to get to these people and work them out. You can hardly blame them for the time that it takes and the time it takes to get an ambulance back on the road. And coincidentally, it happens that they're all parked up there, and then suddenly you have your cardiac arrest and there's no defibrillator to restart you. You just die.
The Alan Playford that we're going to talk about, back in the day, would be quite frustrated, which I think you're frustrated about what you're just talking about then.
Absolutely.
What would you be trying to do? I know you'd be trying to probably do something to change this, but how do you change this?
Well, education for one. Like at school, they're not schooled about this, they're not talked about it by their parents and what have you. They're allowed to get away with whatever. And that accumulates into disruptive behaviour like this, and it impacts on the ambulance that's going to go and get some alternative person's father or mother having a stroke or a cardiac arrest. So education is the key.
You started as an ambulance officer in the early 1970s. I think we've got a pic. What made you get into that field?
I came out of the army in national service, and I went back to my trade, and I just wasn't fulfilled by it and whatever. And I thought service to the community might be a way to go. And so they had what they called the honorary service. So you came into an ambulance and worked part-time with a more experienced person, and got to see whether you liked it or whether they liked you. And if both fitted, you got offered a job after a period of time. And that's how I began.
Yeah. Just looking at that picture, I mean, there's so many call-outs over the years. Like, if you could look at a picture, could you go, I remember that?
I do remember that because the guy on the ground is an Ambo. He was coming home from Tech College where he was enhancing his skills, and he's been hit off his motorbike, and that's on the corner of going to the Mater Hospital, Lambton Road,
Yep.
up to the Mater. And he was deeply unconscious on the footpath. And Alan Reid, my partner, and I went to it, and he required advanced care on the road, went to the John Hunt, long story short, and made a successful recovery. And he's only recently retired, I understand, from Toronto Station just recently.
Yeah.
So,
Swoop and Scoop, glorified taxi service. Was that what it was mainly back then?
well, I partially described that in my previous description about ramping, but
Yes.
that's true. And Swoop and Scoop was the cliche given by Dr. Bob Wright in Sydney, who brought the paramedicine into vogue, that's what we were doing. We were racing out to an accident or some household sort of incident, and with limited skill, we could just pack them up on the stretcher and take them to hospital. And he defined that intervening period of where the life could be saved at the scene, because time is critical.
Yep.
And so he talked with Dr. Pantridge in Northern Ireland, brought out the defibrillator, but he needed people to operate these defibrillators. It meant that you were going to spend longer at the scene than our traditional swoop and scoop.
Yep. We'll just talk about that in a second, but just with ambos, they used to be everywhere once. So it was like they were on the side of football fields. They were, in the ambulance behind a horse race. Were you ever in one of them?
Yeah, we were over at the Broadmeadow track. You'd take your turn on the Ambo roster.
That would have been an easy shift or something. You go, just don't fall off, guys, and I've got an easy shift here.
Yeah, it just depended, but generally a fairly easy shift. You just followed on behind when the gun went off. You just follow the horses around the track to the end. They'll wait for the next race. You
just mentioned Bob Wright. I mean, he really was a pioneer of paramedicine. But he sounded like one tough cookie.
Oh, he was a tough cookie, all right.
But that probably helped him, didn't it?
Oh, I think really it did, because this guy is the head of anaesthesiology for Australia. He's no slouch.
We've got a pic of him too.
Yeah, and here he is. That's him.
Wow.
Here he is.
He looks like a wild man, in a front row in a scrum. Like, you won't mess with him.
You don't mess with Bob. No, that's for sure. He saw a goal, and he didn't want anyone putting impediments to get to that goal.
I mean, do you think that being that difficult type of guy got the next phase of the frontline treatment going as early as it was?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, he felt that he needed big voices behind him, so he appealed to Dr. Frank Partridge in Northern Ireland for the cardiac side of what he was trying to perfect, and he appealed to Doctor in America. I read the book this morning to get his name.
It's all right, we'll pick it up.
Yeah, you cut that part out. Pardon? Yeah. Anyway. He was a wonderful man, and he looked after me when I was over there on exchange. But he was the advisor to Bob on trauma.
Yeah.
And so Bob melded trauma and the cardiac aspect together.
In regards to what he was trying to do, it's more or less saying that we can get people to fix things on the way, or help people on the way, and not just be that glorified, swoop and scoop. Even before Bob entered your life, when you were doing it, were you thinking along the same realms as Bob, going, this could be so much better?
I was frustrated to the nth degree, I can tell you, because you'd pick up a cardiac arrest at Adamstown,
Yep.
You try and do CPR to the Royal Newcastle. There's no John Hunter then. And inevitably, by the time you got there, you had a driver in the front because you're by yourself. So you had to select a family member to drive, a policeman, a fireman, whoever it might be. And you got one eye looking out the window to see if you're going to hit the side of the building, and you've got one eye on trying to do effective CPR in the bouncing ambulance. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And so inevitably they'd say, well, thanks, Mr. Playford, for your efforts, but the patient has died.
I mean, was there, when, Bob, obviously put some classes together down at the old Callum Park Hospital, did you feel at the time you were like, wow, we're really onto something here? Or was there that worry that it wasn't because of the pushback that Bob was getting from authorities that it might not stick?
I think it was that serious in your mind, you had to exclude everything else except study to pass the inevitable height that he'd established for you to graduate. And all the external noise would come later, but to concentrate on what you had to learn to get through, to pass that final exam, and then we'll look at the other aspects after that.
Just staying on Callum Park Hospital, that's one haunted place. Do you have any experiences down there?
I personally haven't, but the haunted experiences abound down there.
Yeah,
the stories, even going over to the dining room of an evening for an evening meal, and they'd relate to you stories that have been there in the past. Did you walk this particular way over the dining room? I shouldn't go that way. This, that, and the others happened.
Because there was a lot of mentally ill mistreated at that place for many years,
yeah.
wasn't there?
And that was little understood as well.
When you got there, I mean, did you feel that, there's this, it was almost like a crack squad getting put together, wasn't it? And was there that camaraderie right at the start? Everyone was in it and looking at each other going, we're onto something here. We need to get this right.
Well, I actually spoke to Ross Finlay this morning, and Ross and I were in the same class 6, course 6, at St Vincent's Hospital. We'd only stay at Rozelle for our accommodation and meals, then we'd travel every day over to St Vincent's Hospital.
Yep.
And he and I have been friends from that course in 1977.
Wow. To make it easier for people listening and watching, the pushback was from the hierarchy. Was it New South Wales Ambulance and the emergency departments to embrace the change? That was the problem, wasn't it? The fact that they didn't want someone. Was it more of a union thing?
Look, the union did become involved, and we had a very strong union in Newcastle who had very decided views on whether the rank and file of the ambulance service would be included in this or it's going to be divisive and exclude them.
Yeah.
And whilst they apologised, it meant there was a qualification of you being accepted on academia, and then going through the course and passing at the end, and that was a very steep curve. So a lot of people had to make up their mind: did they want to have a go or let it go?
But I can understand the AMBOs being a bit jealous. It's almost like you turn up and go, get to the side, we've got this, But what was the pushback from emergency departments? That to me would be a great help, that you've kept the person alive and they can just carry it on.
It depended on the personality of the doctor
Right.
and nursing establishment at that particular hospital. I remember going to the Mater one afternoon. We just reversed a heroin overdose, who otherwise would have been dead. We gave him what the drug we call Narcan on the street, woke him up, but I determined I wanted to take him to hospital because he'd had a fair bit to drink before. Normally you could just give them Narcan, wake them up and say, okay, all the best, see you later.
Yep.
And the knowledge that they're alive. But no, I took this fellow to the Mater, and the doctor came out and said, who authorised you to give naloxone, Narcan? And I said, why, are you worried about the patient, doctor, or what is it? He said, you haven't been authorised to give it. That's only given by the medical profession. I said, I'll simply say, here's the number of Dr. Bob Wright at St Vincent's Hospital. Give him a call and he'll answer all your questions.
Bureaucracy, and throughout this podcast, bureaucracy raises its ugly head so many times, doesn't it?
So many times.
Just getting back to Bob Wright, he was at war with a fellow by the name of Bill Kelly, who was at the time, he was the state superintendent, who apparently liked to tipple before lunch.
He did indeed. And,
which I think was probably more common back in the day than most people think.
It just frustrated Bob so much. In that particular meeting, he was so frustrated with not being able to procure stores for the paramedic units that in frustration he called him car park. And he said, "Who did you call me?" And he said, "Car park." "Why was that?" And he said, "Well, because you're half full by lunchtime." And it brought the house down. They sacked 2 people there on the spot.
Wow.
And it was, it was a lively sort of scene, as I understand.
Wow. I'm gonna use that line too. I think I know a few people I could tell you. But I mean, Bill Kelly was threatening, I suppose, anyone who backed Bob Wright. What did it make everyone uneasy at the time? As much as you're trying to train for this, you've got this in the background.
Made them extremely uneasy, and he was pitching it against, well, all you fellas are going to be left behind. Well, they weren't going to be left behind at all, because Bob had perfected the dual response, and that meant that you can't go to a big scene for a road crash, rescue, or a cardiac arrest without 4 people there. Now, we often do it with 1.
Yeah.
But the ideal essence to revive you, get you back to life, is to have 4 people. That is, good people doing good CPR, one understanding what's on the ECG, and the other administering the drugs, and then put a tube down their lungs and bag them. So there's a lot of work there.
Yeah.
The ambos were never going to be out of a job.
The training was brutal, wasn't it, though?
The training was brutal.
In the I suppose the theory. Is it a lot different now than what it would have been back then?
I think so. I think probably with the advent of, what's the word I'm looking for, to be more accommodating of people and the learning process, where his wasn't. You know it now, you know it at 8 o'clock in the morning, or you walk back to Roselle.
Yeah.
You're out.
And also, too, I suppose, with so many, I mean, you look at ice addicts and different types of situations now that they probably nowadays would it be a case of learning the different types of situations they could arrive at rather than the actual basics of what they need to do as well.
You mean for the ambulance staff?
For paramedics.
Paramedics? Well, paramedics...
So it can get, at times, very hostile at times, can't it?
Oh, yes, indeed. There's so many of the staff that are set upon, that they take their lives in their hands sometimes with these people out there because of the material that they're on.
Yeah.
Has a different outcome for different people, and the strength of which they've taken it out.
Was there a time when you turned up to a job and you felt threatened? You're trying to save someone's life and you're worrying someone's...
Oh, many times. Many times, yes. And you, at one level, exercised diplomacy.
Yep.
At the other level, it got downright physical.
Yeah. Getting taught to, I suppose, using the defibrillator, that was on a dog, was it?
Yes, Bob had collaborated with some of his doctors at St Vincent's, and there was one called Professor Michael O'Rourke, and Michael was going to develop what Dr Pantridge in Northern Ireland had advocated, and his role was to teach the cardiac essence of what we're going to do. And he said there's no better way to do that than come down to the laboratories where unfortunate animals from the RSPCA, from the pounds, would be brought in would be anaesthetised, and then their chest would be split open, then with retractors, their rib cage opened up, so you could see heart, lungs, and the elements of the dog's anatomy.
Yep.
And the one in particular that Michael O'Rourke was interested in is the heart. So he could actually institute a drug that would stop the heart, and they had these micro paddles about the size of a 50-cent piece, and here, Al, you take them this time, put them either side of the heart, you flick the switch, and you've defibrillated the dog, and he's back alive.
Wow.
And to me, to see that was like...
Like Dr. Frankenstein-ish, isn't it?
It was like...
He's alive!
He's alive, yeah. Wow. I just couldn't believe it.
But that dog should be bronzed. Because really, when you think of it,
he'd have a IV line in the dog,
Yep.
and then you give adrenaline, atropine, isoprenaline to speed the heart up, to slow the heart down, to stop it, and then defibrillate it. Now, that's what you're going to do to people out there.
Yeah.
And you went, wow, I've never seen it like that.
Yeah. Well, you got to use it for the first time on a person at the Balmain Leagues Club. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I just
I shouldn't laugh.
I just passed out of the course, and was expecting to come home, but there was no place at the Royal Newcastle for our ongoing training, because we would work in theatre to learn our skills of putting tubes into lungs and whatever. So I wasn't quite ready at the Royal. So, Al, would you remain in Sydney for a short period before you go home? And you can work on the road down there. And so Dave McGee and myself worked together, the team. We did know our way around Sydney, but they gave us a routine job. Would you take something out to the centre at Rozelle? And we'd taken that from Quay Street in the city out to Rozelle.
Yep.
And dropped it off, and we're on our way back, and they called us up and said, could you respond to a cardiac arrest at the Balmain Leagues Club, which is just up the road. So we were nice and close, pulled around the corner, grabbed our defibrillator and a drug box, and up we went. See, this fellow is actually sitting up in the chair, dead as a doornail, at his meal. Heart had stopped, and he's in cardiac arrest. And Dave McGee was so... interested in getting on with the job that we had a Life Pack 5, and he dialed up 200 watt seconds, and I split the man's shirt with a pair of scissors, and Dave put the paddles on his chest, and you can see on the screen ventricular fibrillation indicated to shocked the person, and the fellow immediately woke up, was a bit groggy to start with, and then gradually his brain settled, and he gradually started to form words. And when I was looking at his chest, I thought, oh my God, he's got burn marks on both sides of his chest. David forgot to put the gel on the paddles. But whilst he had these burn marks in his chest, the guy's alive.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for me, or for the two of us, we'd saved our first life.
So he'd be still, to this day, if he was still alive, he'd be going, why haven't these healed up?
Hopefully.
But this is the thing too, if this actually happened these days, you'd probably be getting sued for burning him, even though you saved the life.
Well, the paddles are a little different these days. They're pre-gelled.
Right.
You tear them out of the pack and you put them on, and then the defibrillator is activated. But we actually had paddles that you pull out and hook onto press onto the chest.
Yep. Everyone deserves the chance to live life their way. At Connectability, they support people with disabilities to build confidence, independence, and real connections in their community. With allied health services and capacity building supports for children and adults, they help people develop the skills they need to grow, learn, and thrive. From daily living and community participation to NDIS support coordination and supported independent living. Connectability is there to help you achieve your goals, dreams, and aspirations. Connectability, supporting people, strengthening communities.
In the world of construction, precision isn't optional, it's essential. For over 35 years, Newcastle Sheet Metal has delivered high-quality ductwork, fabrication and installation on time, every time. From large-scale commercial projects to precision custom work, we don't just meet deadlines, we set the standard. Newcastle Sheet Metal, built on experience, driven by quality.
Escape the city and discover the magic of the Hunter Valley with HV Tours. From world-class wineries and craft breweries to gourmet food, cheese, chocolate, gin and breathtaking views. This is more than a tour, it's an experience. Small groups, relaxed vibes, local guides and unforgettable memories, all without the stress of driving. Whether it's a romantic getaway, birthday celebration, hens weekend or just a day out with friends, Hunter Valley Tours delivers the ultimate wine country experience. Book your next escape now at HV Tours and let the good times roll. We think of moments in your career that made a change or a spark. A woman, unfortunately, was pulled out of the Stockton Beach. That was a bit of a game changer because sadly she died on the way, but via the surf life-saving helicopter. That was something that sort of sparked in your head, wasn't it? Because it was almost like you were nearly there to help, and she didn't make it on the way. And you probably, that was one where you thought, hang on, this could be done a lot
Differently,
better.
Yeah. It resonated in my mind quite a lot. It was a chap called Barry Frost and myself went lapdash from Hamilton to Stockton Beach. Now that's a fair sort of way.
Yeah.
The helicopter, which was the surf life-saving helicopter, the old MASH type helicopter,
Yep.
had beat us across from the city beach to Stockton. It's not this one, that's the Jet Ranger. You remember the MASH?
Yeah.
And they'd swoop and scoop, put the patients into the...
On the side bit?
Yeah. Well, they couldn't get to them. Once the doors were closed, they couldn't get to them. And so there was no treatment on the way to the hospital. And so we had discussions with them. There was a chap called Terry Mulville who was recognising the fact that they were first aiders, and here you are trained to this level, but you actually got to waste time going by road. Mm-hmm. Why don't you fly there? And so with Terry's intervention, going to the authorities in Surf Life Saving, said, well, couldn't we sort of expand this, that we have a helicopter, we put the paramedics in so they can give the advanced care and thus enhance the life-saving ability.
So it was like a case of, at the time it was like, we have the speed and not the skills, you have the skills and not the speed.
Exactly, yes.
And combining the two is, I suppose, a match made in heaven. Because you couldn't treat, patients on a helicopter.
Well, the later ones you could.
The later ones, yes.
Yeah. But to get there quickly, but more importantly, to get back quickly to a surgeon,
yep.
Was the essence of the exercise. I
suppose the Vietnam War showed that it could be done, couldn't it?
Well, extremely. And being in the army, we were in helicopters every day, in and out of the Hueys, learning how to become a soldier, I guess. So it was resonated in the back of my mind that we'd been doing that, but now everything's back in Australia. It's like the lessons of the war haven't been learned at all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a Dr. Decatati who produced a book. He was a RAF doctor, and he produced a book on battlefield injuries rescued by helicopter by the Americans, known as Para-Rescue in Vietnam.
Wow.
And someone who was shot, critically injured, could have an IV placed, receive plasma, could have the medical anti-shock trousers replaced, and advanced airway, get them back to a MASH unit and have their life saved. So why couldn't we do that on the streets of Australia?
But despite trying to make a difference, bureaucracy strikes again. Jeff Marlborough, a unionist, and Steve Cotterill, the union president, worrying about losing jobs over lives.
Yeah, they were very much worried about would this affect the jobs. Now, we'd just come through that era of was paramedicine going to usurp ambulance jobs, and they worked, with that short period of time, worked out, no, it's not going to affect them. And indeed, it wasn't going to affect the helicopter either.
Yeah.
Around Newcastle, you're still going to need an ambulance service to service the city. But on receipt of a far distant job, the helicopter would take 2 paramedics there, retrieve them back to the Royal, to a surgeon, save their life.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose after headbutting, from both sides for a fair bit, was it 1980 you got the go-ahead, and how did it make you feel when you finally got to be able to do that?
Oh, absolutely. Stunningly unbelievable, because we were in the State Industrial Commission. We got it registered with the State Industrial Commission, and it took 2 years of constant meetings in Sydney with his nibs, the head of the service, that chap that we talked about before, dead set against helicopters. Why can't you do like we did in World War II, have a Dakota? But Dakota, you need a runway. You don't get a runway on a highway or a bedroom, but the helicopter can land in the paddock next door to the bedroom, and it can land on the highway for a big accident. So it wasn't till Dr. Decatati had this book out, we presented it to the Commissioner, Commissioner Clark, the State Industrial Commission, and he said, where have you been keeping this document? It explains perfectly what you've been advocating. From now on, it is passed. The helicopters will join with paramedics, and I commend it to the government, I commend it to all and sundry. And from that point on, it grew and grew and grew, and spread all over Australia. And if I can say one more thing, Commissioner Clark said, what appeals to me is that not only does it work, but here, no one's shooting at you.
Exactly. But just what we've already spoken about, there seems to be so much red tape just to get things over the line. Would it have just been easier if you just stayed a panel beater?
Oh, I think much easier. But no satisfaction.
Well, that was your first job, wasn't it? Was it?
It was, yeah.
I mean, I don't know about these career jobs. I just find something like that. It's being in a shed all day, fixing cars, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. But for you guys and yourself, every day is different, isn't it? I don't think you could. Once you start getting into a job doing that, I don't think you could go into a boring 9-to-5 office job. Could you?
No, you can't. And as you say, every day is so diverse and different that there's a new experience awaiting you.
And also even climbing up the ranks. By doing that, sort of takes you away from the hands-on stuff. And I feel like you're someone that just wanted to keep doing stuff.
Well, I did. I had that opportunity to go up the ranks, but I thought as soon as you go up the ranks, you can't fly anymore.
Yeah.
And my life is about flying and saving lives, so that's where I'll stay.
A massive example of bureaucracy again was the aftermath of a mine rescue of a miner, Noel Kelly, March 26, 1992. Do you remember that well?
Oh, well, yes.
Do you remember all these big events well?
They're etched in your memory. Totally etched.
A shuttle car had taken his leg off at the hip at the Ravensworth mine. You saved Noel's life, and at the end of it, the powers that be were actually looking at taking disciplinary action and even giving you the sack. What was that?
Well, I think they settled into the view that if you can't beat them, you've got to watch them like a hawk, and if they do one step out of
like
place,
you're a marked man.
You're a marked man. See, so, but Bob, in his fullness, wanted us to have eskies on the helicopter.
Yeah.
But you couldn't. They didn't have the wiring, the electrical activity to put blood in the helicopters and keep it refrigerated.
Yeah.
So you had to diversify your approach. So Noel Kelly was like that. I got Ian Osborne, our pilot, to fly into Singleton Hospital,
Yep.
bring me back an esky of universal donor O-negative blood, and I arrived back at the surface with him on the edge, literally the edge of passing away. And as soon as I put 6 units of packed cells into him, he picked up straight away.
Did you feel at the time when you asked for this blood, do you feel, I'm going to get in trouble here, but I don't give a shit?
I did, yeah. It was common sense to get it, and bureaucracy was standing in the way of that. Now, if you go out to Belmont and go on the helicopter now, whole blood comes with them. So why couldn't it do that a few years earlier?
That rescue became a real game changer. Again, there's so many game changers in your career that by something that you've done changes the needle. And that was the start of the Westpac helicopter service, really, because the miners realised the importance of that incident. So the miners' union decided to get their workers to donate, was it 50 cents of their pay packet each week to support the helicopter. And I suppose when there's 40,000 miners, that's a fair sum each week.
That job was done in that helicopter there on the screen.
Wow.
And it's not a big helicopter. You get one patient down one side of it with his feet up on the dashboard next to the pilot, and the para's in the back with him.
Yeah.
So that's where you see the whole blood on the ground before we put him back in the helicopter, and you could see by the ECG that he was improving. The complexes were coming closer together, meaning he had an adequate pulse and whatever. Time enough to get him to the surgeon at the Royal and save his life.
So with the union coming together and doing this, and then you all being pulled over the hot coals about your job, they would have been some red-faced people by the end of this.
I think they always knew it. It was just a loophole that they could exploit to bring us back into line.
Your dad was an oil tank driver. Your mum was a devout Catholic. You went to St Joseph's. Who are you more like, your dad or your mum?
Oh, more like my dad. Yeah.
I mean, just for going to St Joseph, I mean, you used to get the cane for using your left hand. I'm a left-hander. Thank God that didn't come into play for me. But I suppose those early days sort of reinforces the person you were about to become.
I think so. I think the credit I owe the nuns is discipline, because discipline was the essence of a young person's life then. You did as you're told, and you did it quietly, and you didn't give any cheek. And I think, the day of hitting the nun accidentally with a choco and knocking a wimple off her head exemplified that, because boy, oh boy, did they give it to me and me cohorts, my mates. And then as we're examining one another's bums down in the toilet, a nun overhears and says, "You dirty little boys, get yourself up for another dose," And the worst part was taking the note home to my mother, and then she gave me a dose. So I really learned my lesson out of that job.
I remember actually doing a job at Maitland Boys High, which is a very old school, and they had in the library there's this little museum, and there was a big thick book, and it was called the Cainey book.
Okay,
So I'm looking it through, and we're like going back. This is late 1800s, and it was like John Smith, six of the best, not listening.
Not listening.
And I'm reading these going, imagine this, like there'd be just a constant stream just going all day. But in a way, I mean, I'm not against, corporal punishment or stuff like that, but I mean, discipline, I think sometimes can help people on their way.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard asking someone my age now, what do you think? Because today there's none of that at all. And I think sadly, the discipline's just not inbred into the young as it was in our time.
Yeah. 1989, the earthquake, a lot of people have spoken about this. Beaumont Street, there was a bus driver called Eddie, the bus driver, who helped you get some people to the Royal Newcastle Hospital. But the Workers' Club, multiple people trapped in there. you saw a bloke called Albert Bender trapped to his waist. That would have been one hell of a time.
Yeah, a colleague of mine, Mal Martin, was in the Workers' Club probably 20 minutes or so ahead of me. I was still down in Beaumont Street, and a message came for another paramedic, Neville Greaves, and myself to join the fray at the Workers' Club. And when I got down inside the building, here's Mal Martin with Albert Bender, and he had probably 1,000 tonne on his waist.
Yeah.
And Mal, true to, he was just a wonderful paramedic. He had bilateral IVs in Albert, and he was pouring a blood extract called Hemixel. And this is a volume expander when you've lost a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And he said, watch this, Al. When I got down to him to see where he wanted me and what to do, as soon as he stopped pumping, Albert would just lapse into unconsciousness, pump it up again, and he would brighten up and say, are we going to be out soon? And he died shortly thereafter, and Mal pointed me in the direction of all these people who were trapped under the rubble.
Yeah. And, you know, Norm Duffy, that was one hell of a save, but, you know, it wasn't easy, that one, was it?
No, it wasn't easy, but gee whiz, it makes a difference when it's someone who is just special. You
So
know,
he's trapped by so much underneath, and to try and, I suppose, get him out, you're sort of getting under there to try and push things, thinking, I could be making it worse here by doing this. Are you thinking that?
No, I wasn't thinking that, because he had other women trapped with him, and he kept insisting that I release them, get them treated first, and get them up out of the hole we're in. And he just wouldn't hear of me treating him till they were all saved.
Yeah.
So, and his wife was 2 or 3 over. She was dead in the rubble there.
Did he know that at the time?
No, he didn't know. I didn't know either. It was just a dead body who was on the extreme left of him in this hole. A conical shaped hole, 3 metres deep, with four people trapped in it, one being Norm.
But throughout that, he seemed like he was upbeat, like he was going to get out. Did you feel that?
He said, it's all right, ladies, we'll be out. We'll all see the sunshine shortly.
Yeah.
This bloke will get us out and we'll see the sun shortly.
I mean, a patient like that at the time is probably a godsend, because you're probably the one that's trying to say things like that, and he's saying it.
He's saying it for me.
Yeah.
He was fabulous.
And there he is. Was that the next day?
Yeah.
That makes you emotional?
Pardon?
Emotional?
Yeah. That's Mal Martin.
Yep.
Above that was with Albert Bender, and Norm, of course.
And you were good friends with him for a while?
Yeah, for 12 years.
Yeah.
We used to see one another, go and have coffee. He's a wonderful bloke.
Was there many people like that after you've saved their lives, you kept in their life, or just certain people?
There were a few, but I think he was an exceptional one, because he had that wherewithal about being not only a gentleman, but so appreciative of what we've done.
Who called you the shit magnet?
Everyone.
Why is that?
You know, there are people that were in the service, and they'd say, I never go to those kind of jobs, and they just don't follow me, you know. Whereas Playford, he's on the helicopter every second day. He's off to this one and that one. How do you do it? Anyway, shortly enough, they said, you're nothing but a shit magnet.
But that's the thing too. You're just happy to have quiet days. I mean, again, you talk about always wanting to do something. You know, there was obviously going to be quiet days as well. But I suppose they were the days you fine-tuned for the days that you didn't want to come.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we were so busy. We became progressively more and more busy, and it was nice to have a day off. And they'd say, would you come in and do overtime? I'd say, oh, not back on the Parrot truck. Haven't you got something up the valley? So I'd go up to a station up the valley, and I'd say, oh, thank goodness, now I'll have a quiet day. And then I'd be at that station and shit would hit the fan and I'd be up to my eyes in it as well.
We've just come to the time where we've got a bit of a live read here, so have a bit of a rest, have a bit of a water. Do you love a good craft beer?
I used to be. I think I'm more into, what is it now, love?
Chardonnay?
Now, I like that North Queensland beer. Super crisp.
Well, we're going to change your mind here because you need to check out the people at Good Folk Brewing on Beaumont Street at Hamilton. You know Beaumont Street pretty well. From crisp lagers to bold IPAs and seasonal brews, every beer is brewed with passion, flavour and quality in mind. Whether you're a craft beer connoisseur or just keen to try something new, there's always something fresh pouring at Good Folk Brewery. This one here, what's this? We've got normal beer. Doesn't get any better than normal beer. We've had, Brody and I had one the other week, and it's quite good, isn't it, mate?
It's good stuff.
Yep. Brody bought a 6-pack straight away after he had a drink of that. 80 Beaumont Street, Hamilton is the place. Good Folk Brewing, proud sponsors of Incredible Lives with Cainey. Well done to the Elsley brothers for jumping on board. The Crebit Street power line disaster. That was one pretty confronting job call out, wasn't it?
Very, yeah.
Again, you've done so many different ones, and they've all been different. That's the thing, you know. Is that something when you get to something like that, you go, "Geez, well, I haven't been trained for this one. I'm just going to have to start using my nous here."
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
What was the scene? What were you
totally
confronted with?
confronting? It was a dramatic scene as well as a very dangerous scene because the 11,000 volt power lines had been severed.
Yep.
And when they'd come down to the footpath, the edge of the road, being energised, they would keep thwacking down. I call it thwacking, but probably for absence of any other word describes it.
Yep.
And then they would relax and then recoil at great speed back up over the accident scene. And the people that were fallen from the telegraph, from the EWP, the we call it EWP, the bucket they were in, had been blown to the ground.
So they were like up in a cherry picker.
Cherry picker, that's the word I'm looking for. And so at my arrival, we were confronted by a person from across the road who just lost his train of thought because he switched on a garden hose and he got a stream of water going across 11,000 volts to try and put the men out that were on fire on the inner side of the footpath.
So he's trying to do the right thing, but it's
He was
actually
trying
the worst
to do the right
possible
thing. He was going to get everyone killed, you know?
Yeah.
So the first thing was to get rid of him rather quickly, and I engaged a female police officer there, and I said, "Could you please help? I need help with getting this man contained away from the scene." She said, "I can't do anything. I can't find my hat. I need my hat." And it showed me later on when I thought about it that people that are involved in desperate things, their mind will come up with different...
in a way, she was probably in shock herself, wasn't she?
Yeah, obviously, and trying to assimilate her thoughts before she did anything tangible, you know. But that sort of stuck in my mind. But at the same time, Graham Hards has been blown out of the cherry picker at probably 30 metres high. He's completely burnt 100% head to foot. He's still alive when he's been blown out, and he's landed on the footpath and died there. But he was still alive as I arrived because I could see him screaming over there and breathing really deeply. I couldn't see his partner because the electricity vehicle was parallel to the footpath.
Yeah.
All I could see was the bucket that was rated not to be on fire was dripping fiberglass, and I could hear another man screaming. it was dropping the fiberglass onto Stephen Truebody's body. And I realised there was someone alive inside. So I took my holster off. I didn't want anything flapping around that's going to catch onto an electrical cable. And I took a running jump and jumped over 4 sets of these thwacking lines and got to the inside, landed quite next to Graham Hards, went to him immediately and determined that he was going to die very shortly. So I left 100% burnt, you just can't survive that. But he was still moaning and moving slightly. The screaming continued on with Stephen Truebody just adjacent, and I realised that the fire was generating from the bucket, dropping
Like embers.
fiberglass
Yeah.
onto him. So I quickly crossed to him and then trying to scrape. It was summertime, I was in short sleeves,
Yep.
and so I scraped the fire off him and was burnt in the process. Got that off him, and then I put my arms under to drag him back up the footpath, and I dislocated. He had a broken arm. His humerus was broken through, but I put my arm under both his things to try and drag him up the foot, and I dislocated his shoulder. And if you heard a bloke scream on top of what he's already going through, he let rip. I called for my partner, who wouldn't come to my aid, and I thought, how am I going to do this?
Was he in shock as well? Or
Well, he's in the centre of the road, and I guess he was in shock. But our rescue truck showed up pretty much at that moment, and a fellow called Dave Fitzclarence alighted from the passenger side, and I said, well, one of you blokes, please come and help me, you know. So Dave jumped the lines, came in, and he took half of Stephen Truebody and helped me drag him down the footpath. We dragged him down about 40 metres down the side of the footpath, and we said we can't do anything until the power's switched off. We cannot lug this man across thwacking power lines, you know. It's just too dangerous. So short electricity turned off the power, and the line settled down. We picked Stephen up. We brought him up to where my partner had dropped the stretcher down low enough on the roadway, put him on that, and I directed the fire started to arrive from Waratah, and I asked them to put a low pressure hose on gently and just fan it down his body where he was badly burnt. He had 3rd degree burns over probably 60%, 50 to 60% of his body. So they gently put water on the burns. I drove in a couple of IVs, filled him up with morphine, and then arranged to put him back in the ambulance and transport him to the John Hunter then. So, and it shocked me 3 weeks later that he passed away.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
Is that?
Sad
I mean,
loss.
that's the sad thing about it. I mean, you saved Noel here. When you've done all that work and then they still pass away. That I suppose like an aftershock, isn't it? In a different way.
Hardest part was his wife coming to me,
Yeah.
and she said, "Thank you for trying to save Stephen's life," you know. And
Because that was the thing. A job like that, it's almost like things are. It's like a situation that's it's happening while you're doing it. It's not just like someone's trapped or there's other parts at play that you've got to factor in. Which again, these are some things that you could never train for.
yeah, it's true. You've got to make it up on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also too, you mentioned that the fellow that jumped and gave you a hand. Is in those situations you say, that's the measure of the man
Ding. Absolutely.
in regards to future work as well, knowing in situations.
Dave Fitzclarence, he was a wonderful bloke. He was a rescue fellow at the ambulance had rescue in those days.
Yeah.
And he was on the rescue truck, dependable and game as anything, and would never let you down.
Yeah. I think we got a picture of you getting a medal for that. There you go.
Oh, that's the state superintendent.
Proud moments, those.
Yeah.
But still probably in the back of your mind that,
Yeah.
you know, that
Yeah.
they didn't make it.
Yeah, Dad came to see me and whatever, so it's a special moment in my mind.
Rwanda. That was something that I suppose you could not go to. It feels like, you know, for those not familiar or have forgotten, that was a civil war that saw around 800,000 people die in a time that, around the time, I think it finished in 1994.
No, it finished in 1995.
95, sorry. What was the need? What was the moment where you said, I need to go?
I think this chap you see in that photo there is State Superintendent Jim McLaughlin, and he received a request from the United Nations for this concept of paramedicine. Could it be taken to war zones and implemented there?
Yeah.
And so a request was issued throughout the service for volunteers to go to Rwanda and take their equipment and whatever to pursue paramedicine in a war zone. And so there was three of us. There was John Gleeson from Newcastle, myself, and a chap from Sydney. And by misadventure, I'll have to say, John was knocked back at the last, just about to get on the plane, as it were, and was knocked back and ordered to stay at home. I was sent to Canberra for a briefing, then straight up to Sydney onto an aircraft and into Rwanda almost within days, along with the chap from Sydney, the two of us.
Were you worried? I mean, you're going into a war zone. Obviously, there's danger. And you're not knowing the type of protection. Or did you feel like we'll go over and there'll be enough protection, we'll be right? Or did you feel like you're going to be, you know, I suppose, you know, thrown out there in the elements?
I guess lack of knowledge was paramount because the world had never seen an issue like this. And where rampant killing is the order of the day and nothing else will be tolerated. You know, they were a religious, tribal entity in this whole thing. It was 8,000 years old. They hate one another. Tutsi and Hutu hate one another with a passion, and used the downing of their president's plane at the airport as the catalyst to set off a chain of killing right across the country. So when we arrived there, we left Entebbe in Uganda, and we were flying in all our equipment on American military transport, but America wasn't allowed to join the Rwandan effort by order of President Clinton, because they just had, you remember the movie Black Hawk Down in Somalia.
Yeah.
And so they weren't allowed to come, but they could go as far as Kigali Airport, the airport in Rwanda, and transport equipment in. So we went down with them for about 4 days, bring all our stuff in. Our ambulances were the last to go, and at the last minute the Americans couldn't do it for a variety of reasons. So we were asked to drive from Entebbe through Kampala, the capital, down to Rwanda. And at the last minute they asked us to take a group of Irish nuns in the ambulance with us. And that was a humorous outlet before.
Hope you weren't using things in your left hand.
Yes, indeed. No, they were quite lovely. And
But when you got to Rwanda and you sort of got into there, did you all of a sudden you realise the enormity of what you just stepped into?
I think we did, because as we drove past Kigali Airport on our way in, this small convoy, there was shooting going on, a battle was going on at an adjacent hill, and they were firing backwards and forwards at one another. As you got further into Kigali, there were masses of people dead on the street, and the dogs were eating their bodies. And we learned later there were 55,000 dead on the streets as we entered the city. So it was just a sea of death and destruction.
Did you feel, even when you just say that, you feel helpless? Like, what are we doing here? This is like a uphill battle.
Well, I think the enormity of it hit me like a thunderbolt, because I'd never seen dead people in such numbers in all my life.
Yeah, there's a chapter in the book, and I spoke to a fellow, the former mayor of Newcastle, Ross Kerridge.
Oh, Ross, yes.
And I mentioned to him, and he mentioned your book, and he said, "Have you read the book yet?" I said, "I haven't read the book yet." He said, "Read the book." He said, "There's a chapter called The Church." And I read it, and I'm thinking, it's so unbelievable, it's almost like fiction rather than fact. But I'm going to read an excerpt from it now. I'm going to read a few paragraphs, and for listeners and viewers, I'm sorry that if this makes you uncomfortable, but I'm just trying to put yourself in Alan's shoes here. This was where we went to a church and saw something that must to this day haunt you. It's a massacre. This is a section. It was clear the killings hadn't happened all at once. The fighting had continued here, drawn out over time. The air was thick with a sickly sweet scent of decay. The ground beneath us, a silent witness to an unspeakable massacre. We walked slowly towards the brown wooden church doors. There was a sense that all the fighting had now ended, but our nerves were still heightened. We hoped, foolishly, that what lay behind those doors wouldn't be as bad as we feared. It was worse. The horror before us was almost beyond comprehension. It seemed as though thousands of bodies lay before us. Many appeared to be women, but decay robbed them of their identity. The victims had been cornered inside the church, their final moments filled with terror as grenades were hurled into the crowded space. The force of the blast had thrown their bodies in every direction. They spilled from the pews into the aisles, bodies stacked upon one another, rising as high as the tops of the wooden benches. Those that had tried to flee had been met with machine gun fire, cut down before they could reach the door. The crucifix, once mounted to the wall, had been ripped down and thrown with disdain on top of the dead. It was a final act of desecration in a place that had once been their sanctuary. Jesus Christ, Alan, will that still haunt you?
Yeah, it does to this day, really. Yeah.
And if that wasn't bad enough, a few moments later, something that was even worse. It was even, if it could be possible, conceivable, a small building next to the church, which, what did you see in there?
It was like a sacristy. It was built of brick. It was adjacent to the end of the church where the altar was. And we proceeded down the length of the church, and Catherine Beeson was one of the nurses with me, and she said, for God's sake, you've got to look in the sacristy. And it was just piled with children.
So there were hundreds of children hacked to death into pieces by machetes, presumably to save ammunition.
Yeah, they hacked them to pieces.
Would it have been, I suppose, their final moments, the thoughts of their final moments that would still,
I can only think with that amount of numbers that were herded into the church, that how they separated the infants and the little ones from their parents must have been abject terror to them, you know, when they were thrown in this room and then systematically murdered in there.
How do you detach from that? I mean, was it a case? I mean, from that point on, I'll be like, I want to go home, or you still stay on? Did you feel like you had a duty to be there still?
You still had a duty to be there, and you had to wrestle with your own feelings and just determined to get on with it.
When you come back, do you feel like it was almost like anyone that came up to you that whinged about anything in the slightest, it's like, oh, piss off, you got no idea?
Yeah, that was very prevalent. And I came back to Australia, and my first shift was night shift the following day. And I went to someone down in Schroeder Street in Gateshead, and it was a trivial thing that probably would go to Belmont Hospital, and I said to my partner, I just don't want anything to do with it. You take care of it, I just can't, you know, because it was sooky triviality. And, you know, in the previous week, I've been in this atmosphere and I just couldn't assimilate the two.
And I mean, let's be fair, you know, over time before this, you'd been to some serious accidents, you know, where you've seen some sights that you can't unsee, but that one would have to be just the worst.
But I think in essence that's what kept me there when others were on a plane to go home, because it was just so confronting. I think my partner Angus McDonnell from the Victorian Paramedics, the two of us, because of previous experiences, it allowed us to take it in and steel yourself and get on with it.
There's more that, you know, you stayed on, and there was another experience with a boy without a leg that you know, I suppose you don't usually see very often in regards to the way he. Well, it tells the story. He was in line.
I was going along what they call the Ruangeri Road from Kigali, which would be from here to Port Macquarie Long, and it was heralded by thousands of people escaping Kigali and the slaughter and heading towards Zaire. And you would pass them on the highway with many appeals to stop, but you just couldn't. You had to get to where we were being sent because it was worse up ahead. And as I came to this area, there was a battle going on across the rice fields just adjacent to where the road was. There was shooting and explosions and what have you. I had to pull up because of the massive people who were trying to escape along the road, and the Americans had a non-government organisation, their medical organisation, and they asked me could I possibly stop and give them a hand. And I said, oh, certainly, you know, I'll do whatever I can. So I turned the ambulance round, had the back open where my equipment was, and I presently, without me even asking, as this queue of people had formed at the back of the ambulance, and I just settled down and started treating them one by one, and presently somebody came down the queue, and through the barrier of not being able to talk, I didn't have an interpreter with me, and it was tugging on my, you know, please, come, you know. And I walked up the line with this person, and there's a little boy there, he'd be 11 or 12, and he had an adult holding him with his leg blown off just above the knee, and I said, oh, goodness me. Ordinarily you bleed to death from that, but his vessels had retracted into the stump, and he was oozing rather than hemorrhaging. And I said, come on, we've got to go, and language barrier and what have you. And the adults tapped me on the shoulder. He said, no. And it was explained to me later from the little boy that they didn't want to jump the queue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you wonder what happened to that little boy?
Often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's almost like one, I'm sort of bringing this up, but you witnessed a roadside massacre. Another time, it was another scary time, a 12-year-old at a checkpoint. Was that the scariest time you actually thought you were going to die?
We actually, Angus and I did. We reflect on that from time to time when we catch
So
up.
there was a lot of those young boys that were used more or less as pawns to do this sort of work.
They were terrible. They were worse than the adults.
Why is that?
I think they were filled with some zealous notion that they were going to be we'll show the bigger blokes in our group that we can kill just the same as they can.
Right.
And they forced Angus. This one was at this barrier. We had a trainee driver because we were pretty strapped for people to help, and we wanted the notion that we could be in the back with the wounded and let somebody else drive. So we were taking this fellow for a driving test, and presently we came across his roadblock, and you could see he immediately was very tense, and this little boy with an AK-47 that was almost as tall as him indicated that you open the door and get out and kneel down on the ground and put your hands on your head. That was to Angus and I, and that the driver would be pulled out the front, go across the road, and I'm going to shoot him. I'm going to kill him. And we were basically powerless to do anything. I mean, you wanted to get up and rush this bloke and sort of take the gun off him, but it didn't have to wait because this adult came down out of the bush where they had a lean-to or something a bit further up, and there was a whole lot of Rwandese spoken, and he kicked this kid up the backside, the hardest I've ever seen someone kicked in the bum in all my life, and the AK-47 went skating down the road with the safety off. You know how it didn't go off on the roadway, I don't know, but kicked this kid so hard, and he ordered him to go back, and he said, as the driver explained to us later, take your driver, put him in the thing, and being Mzungus, two white people, piss off and get going. You know, he dropped the barrier, and we were allowed to continue on.
Do you think you were saved because you were white?
I think so. Yeah.
Because they would have thought that it would have got back to higher authorities. Wow. Muesli bars, they were a bit of a different type of barter system, weren't they?
They were a godsend.
So in other words, the Rwandan currency was just gone, shot out of the water. Yeah. So a muesli bar was almost like $200.
Well, they were all starving.
Yeah.
Whether they were on roadblocks with an AK-47, they were still hungry. And so your immediate response to a roadblock was a smile, and that would work sometimes, but a muesli bar almost worked every time. They'd given us $500 American to be kept on our person to bribe our way out of a situation that looked fairly dire. And so out of the three ways to work your way through a roadblock, a muesli bar was by far the best. So the Australian Army had connexes of muesli bars and women's weeklies brought over there. There was New Ideas and Women's Weekly and all sorts of things. And they said, what do you want women's weeklies for? I said, they make the best splint. We don't want to read it, we want to use them as a splint.
Right. Wow. At Elk Architecture, we don't just design buildings, we shape the spaces where life happens. From concept to construction, our award-winning architects bring our vision to life with precision, passion, and purpose. Whether it's your dream home or your next big commercial project, trust Elk Architecture to build what matters most. Elk Architecture, designed for life, built for the future. If you're chasing one of Newcastle's best craft beers, make your next stop Good Folk Brewing in Beaumont Street, Hamilton. Good Folk is all about brewing fresh, full-flavoured craft beers with character. Whether you're into crisp lagers, happy IPAs, smooth pale ales, or something a little different, they've got the brew for you. Grab your mates, settle in for a tasting paddle or a pint, and enjoy the relaxed atmosphere that's made Good Folk a local favourite. Great beer, great people, and great times. That's Good Folk Brewing, right in the heart of Hamilton. Are you looking to add just a little bit more spark to your relationship, or is it about just treating yourself? Then it's time to visit Confessions Boutique. With a huge range of premium and intimate adult products, romantic gifts, and expert advice in a relaxed, judgment-free environment, then Confessions Boutique is just the place. Whether you're shopping solo or as a couple, you'll be welcomed by friendly staff who know their stuff. So if you're ready to spice things up, then head to Confessions Boutique at Charlestown, because life's too short for boring nights. Not long. Angus MacDonald, he seemed like a brother to you, and someone that didn't seem to take much shit. Is he the best person to have?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We're the best friends to this day, and we were going to go, till this recent trouble in the Gulf, we were going to go over to Europe with him this year on a holiday. So he and his wife, we just get on like brother and sister.
When you first met him, did you know? Like, because again, you know, he came with, you know, a certain amount of experience. So did you. Did it feel like both of you knew, oh wow, this is probably a pretty good pairing here?
Look, we didn't know at the time, but that's it, in essence what it became, a very good pairing, because Micah in Melbourne was trained the same as Bob Wright's Paras in New South Wales,
yep.
And so we were the perfect team. Yeah.
Was there times? I mean, you worked together a lot in that country, but there was times you split up. Did you feel better when he was there?
Oh,
easier, a bit easier?
Oh, absolutely.
I was going to say, I'm not going to that job unless he's coming with me.
I wanted so much to say that, but we were so stretched because the ambulance service wouldn't send John Gleeson. So that's the reason we had to ask to stay back in Rwanda, because we were just beset by so many wounded that we needed John there. We didn't get him, so Angus and I just were pressed every day, every night.
When it was, I suppose, the people that were handing out all these jobs, when it was time for you guys to go, they would have went, oh my God, we've just got two crack commandos in the field that we're going to lose. What can we do to keep you? Was that like a...
Dr. Julian from Médecins Sans Frontières, who we worked out was the best place to take wounded. They were fabulous. Emma said, you've seen them on the TV over the years.
Yeah.
And he loved us like brothers, and he got down on the ground in front of the ambulance and wouldn't let us go.
You come back a different man. Your wife at the time, before you went, she probably wasn't on board with it. Would that be a fair say? But she also knew that there was no stopping you?
I think so. I think there was that inevitability in her thinking that probably wouldn't stop me. But yeah, it sort of... It was a strain I didn't anticipate. I thought I can cope with the roads here in Australia, and the bedrooms, you know, cardiac arrest and whatever. Okay, I'm used to dramatic things. I can cope with this, but it's just something beyond your coping ability.
So after 2 years, the marriage disintegrated.
Yeah.
But do you actually think now you look back and go, you know, if I didn't go, maybe I'd still be with her? Or, you know, I know it's like a fork in the road. You went and this happened, but do you feel, I don't know, sad because of the fact that it probably your decision to go actually
precipitated the
Yeah.
breakup. I don't think she could cope with the enormity of how it affected me, and I really didn't know how I was going to reintegrate with society myself.
Was she a little bit like what you were saying, when you went back to work? It was like, your holiday's finished, get back to work. She didn't feel,
she was never like that.
because you would have told her exactly what you've just told us there.
Yeah, and she understood the enormity of it. So a comment like that was made by others,
Yeah.
she would never have said that. No.
Yeah.
No.
In regards to coming back, again, you mentioned that it's hard to sort of assimilate back to normal life, but you then get redeployed to East Timor. After what you went through in Rwanda, what was the need to go there? Was it just something that was like, I've got to do this? It's in my blood now.
Well, it was the horse I had to get back on.
Yeah.
Professor Lynn McCormick, who's the head of psychology at the university, or she was, don't know whether she still is now, but she was absolutely wonderful, and the person who I credit with putting me back together. She'd been in the Vietnam War herself, so she understood warfare and she understood service people and what have you. So I'd been under a psychiatrist when I first got back, and he had no idea of war or what it meant, and he was as far away from accepting the reality of it as you could get.
Yeah.
And so I left that fairly quickly, and they pointed out Dr. Lynn McCormick to me, and went to her, and it made, I think I went to her for about 2 years, and it made such a difference in my life, to understand just what I'd been through.
Going back on normal, like just when you came back here after Rwanda, was it tough just going to your every run of the mill job after that?
Look, it was to start with, and I think when Lynn got hold of me and started to say, it's either you basically cotton down to this future existence of yourself, or you find yourself in a corner somewhere.
Yeah.
Without a job, contemplating whether you want to live anymore. It was that stark a reality.
Did you ever contemplate?
I had some low moments, that's for sure. But when I finally started to assimilate those, I was able to go back to my job and get cracking again.
Yeah. Just about East Timor, I think we've got a pic where you got an ambulance on the beach.
Yeah.
What were the similarities between East Timor and Rwanda?
Not as intense as Rwanda.
Yeah.
But it had its moments. It was a very bitter coexistence before anyone arrived there between the East Timorese and the Indonesian occupying army.
Yeah.
And there've been several massacres there and what have you, where the East Timorese had taken it very personally, and finally couldn't take it anymore. So it began in 1999, and they asked for paramedics from South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. And so 35 of us rotated through East Timor. And it was for me like the horse I had to get back on. So,
but were you also worried that it would open up wounds as well?
Look, I was, but I soon dispelled that because I'd been able to take my thoughts and put them in a bin.
Yeah.
And then get on with what's present, do it to your best of your ability, and try and save some more lives.
Yeah. You went to the Solomon Islands as well?
Did, yep.
Again, that experience, that...
Oh, it was easier than East Timor.
Yeah.
It was. I was on the helicopter there because of a helicopter accreditation. They specifically wanted airborne trained paramedics there, so because of the diversity of the island makeup of Solomons. So yeah, I did a lot of flying there and a lot of outlying help.
The Canberra bushfires in 1993. It seemed like you and Gleeson were in your element, like superheroes. Look at this. This looks like the gates of hell.
Yeah.
Like, really? Have you seen a picture like that? It's just incredible.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it turned Canberra to midnight. It was actually as black as midnight.
But there was, at the same time too, it seems like there was a lot of dumb people that decided to stay in their houses. Were you surprised?
I asked about that later on. They said, that's because they're public servants.
But what was the, I mean, you know, it's all about defending your little kingdom, but, you know, there's a time that you've got to go. Why were they sort of so stoic?
Reticent to the extreme, you know. I still think about it. In a particular place called Darwinia Drive, Chapman. And now next door was Duffy.
Yep.
And Rivet. And this federal highway that ran along there. And when I turned into, after coming, this chasing us out of the Brindabellas, back along Cotterdam Road to Canberra itself, I teamed up with 2 police officers there. And I said, gee, it's good that you've got all these people out of Duffy, this adjacent suburb. He said, no one's been evacuated at all. I said, do you know what's coming? And he said, is it that bad? And I said, well, it'll be through the pine trees shortly, and it'll be 180 metres in the air. And the smoke's 10,000 metres in the air, you know? I said, it'll rip through this place like nobody's business. And he said, would you come with us? And we drove along to Yucambine Drive, went right up Yucambine Drive, and it looked like a World War II image of Europe with refugees streaming out of some township where the fighting was going on. And it was a 2-lane road, and they've not only got both lanes, but they're driving through the gardens of houses on both sides to just get away.
Yeah.
Because all the 700 houses were destroyed in Duffy, and then went across the road into Chapman. So when we got up the top, they explained that these people were having difficulty in Darwinia Drive. And a man came up, he was about 75, and he said, could you get my wife out of number 11? Darwinia Drive. And when we looked at it, John and I, we said, there's this huge smoke pall going across, blocking out anything from number 5 on, and she's in number 11. And anyway, we looked at it and we thought we'd tied wet rags around our faces and we'll go on foot into number 11. And when you got under the pall of smoke in Yucambine Drive, it just turned to night. This shroud coming over like that, ripping through the trees, the telephone poles were on fire, trees, and the houses had a gas vent up the front, which was common in Canberra because it's so cold.
Yeah.
Those gas vents were burning, and the house was burning fiercely on the outside from the gas vent, which had been ignited. And there's a fellow, this fellow's wife was in there, opened the front door, and she was about 75, but she looked like an Olympic sprinter. She came out of that doorway so fast, you know. And one of the police officers, can't think of his name, he drove the police bomb squad. It was a bomb squad truck. That's how thin on the ground the police were there. So we put this lady in the bomb squad truck, did a U-ey and took her back up Darwinia out to Yucambine Drive. We followed out to catch our breath on the other side of the smoke pall, and they said there's more trapped in there. And when we went back in, here's people in their front garden with garden hoses. And you say, come on, mate, you've got to go, you know. I can't, my family's in the house. Your family? So I opened the front door, his mum and the 4 kids in the hallway. So we'd get them out. And that's what it premised the length of Darwinia Drive. We got 110 people out.
I was about to say, how many people do you think you saved that day?
110 from Darwinia, and a road that adjoined it called Chapman Street. But the thing that noted, this was coming across the paddocks at such a rate in bursts and then it eased down, and then it'd be another burst of 200k an hour. The horses were standing in this paddock with their manes and tail burning fiercely, with the horse standing up just accepting it.
Yeah.
And we went along this Chapman Street rescuing people out of the houses there to escape back to Darwinia Drive.
There's so many different experiences that that we're covering, and I just find it amazing, the array of different things where you've saved people. You know,
there's a wide diversity of emergency
yeah.
sort of experience.
Did, on that day, did you feel like there was something big that was going to happen? Like,
well, we were on night shift out in the Brindabellas from the Wednesday, where it was only a trickle out there. We were stationed with a Rural Fire Service task force there, and we said, well, there's nothing to do, you know, there's just a trickle of fire out there. Didn't seem to be doing too much to it. Came back Thursday night, night shift, same, came back Friday, and it's huge. And we followed the task force in, but they've got a real fire now.
yeah,
And it chased us all night. We got out of there at 4 in.the morning, back along this, we barely got out of there really, to what they call Doctor's Flat Road that leads to that town up on the highway. Can't think of its name. Anyway, we drove back to where the Rural Fire Service had their camp set up at Stromlo, that little housing settlement of Stromlo.
yeah.
The telescopes and that are up the adjoining mountain, and it went through there like butter, this fire. We got out of there, we stationed ourselves at the Scrivener Dam, watched the proceedings during the morning, put ourselves back on duty, and that's when we came down and joined with Sergeant, can't think of his name, and his two-stroke senior constable, and they've become firm friends.
Well, I was about to say, with friendship, yeah, you were down there with your a good mate Gliso. Do you feel that, you know, like Rwanda was different? You come back, you feel sort of like you're on your own. With Gliso, after something like that, it was good to have a mate doing it with you. It's almost like you could debrief with a mate.
Yeah, Gliso's been a fabulous partner for as long as I can remember, and to be placed in that, we only went there because we were called SCAT, the Special Casualty Access Team. So we were helicopter based, but we were a specialist rescue squad.
Yep.
That's why we were sent to Canberra. But this had even overwhelmed SCAT.
Another rescue that you went to, a Gloucester River rescue. You cover different rescues, I tell you. That was a hairy one as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
They've become wonderful friends, Neil and Chana. And we arrived up there by helicopter at 11 o'clock at night.
So there were some people that had gone up.
Yeah, there was the local ambos from up there had been drawn away to other jobs because they got to the Gloucester River Caravan Park and realised where these people were by a map. So they're about 9 kilometres down this ravine.
Yep.
And someone had walked out to say that the lady, Chana, had broken her leg in a slide and was trapped in the river itself. And so arriving at 11 o'clock at night, we realised that it was too dangerous to go down there in the dark with the helicopter. So helicopter returned to Newcastle. We slept the night, and John and I started the trek in there at 4:30 the next morning.
Yeah.
So we had some people from the State Emergency Service with us to help carry our equipment. We trekked in there, got to the river, and they're down the bottom of this slope. So we abseiled down the slope into the water ourselves, disentangled the rope, and swam across the river to where Shana was. Her husband and a friend that they were with had got her up onto a ledge beside the water, and she's got a badly broken leg. It's her lower leg, her lower right leg. she was in so much pain. She'd been there since the night before with all night with this broken leg.
Yeah.
So she must have been in heaps of pain. So exposed the leg, splintered it, and then put an IV in and gave her IV morphine, so to cope with the pain. Now we said, how are we going to get out of here? This river is quite full, and the SES fellow said, I know this area, and we're about 300 metres from the waterfall. So he said, okay, well, we can cope with it. So we swam along, John swam along, driving in pittons into the side of the rock where we could put our rope through. So we got 200 metres of rope with us, and we've tied that off at this end, put a harness on her, tied it to the harness, or linked it to the harness, and then we could swim with her, with me swimming, holding her leg, because this is so steep.
Yeah.
With rock, you couldn't walk there, so it had to be by floating her. And Neil, her husband, he swam ahead with John feeding the cleats through the pitons that we'd driven into the rock, and me supporting her leg. And we went the 200 metres along. Now it was 300 metres long, but we got to a landing where we thought we've got to get out of the water and make a fire to get a temperature up. She was freezing, you know. We've contacted the helicopter by radio and said, there's no way through this gap in the river you can get in here.
Yeah.
But by the waterfall, it opens up a bit, might be able to get you in there. So when we got there, we made a fire, gave her something to eat, and settled those necessities, and thought we'll wait here till the helicopter came. So how are we going to do it? If we swim out to the edge of the waterfall, we'll be swept over. So we measured out our rope, tied it off to a cleat that we drove into the rocks there, and then put her back and linked up the harness again, and we swam out to the edge of the waterfall so that we wouldn't all go over, and just waited there for the helicopter to come. So the helicopter made, and it was Ian Osborne, who was fantastic. He's our best pilot. And it circled and circled, and he wore his way down to a point, and one of the paras from Newcastle came up who was on that shift. He came up and he winched down and he linked up Chana, cut the rope, and he took her, while the two of us were just watching from the edge of the waterfall. So we swam back to the fire, warmed ourselves up, and we said, now we're going to walk out because there's no helicopter. So we spent...
but the job was done, though.
The job was done. She survived. Wow. And her and Neil have become good friends.
Wow. Mate, it's, again, this'd be a great movie. I think random pick time, Brody. I think so we got... Here we go. Who's this?
Michelle de Courcy, and she was an 11-year-old girl who had died in a house in Miller Street, Mayfield West. Well, we got her back and got her heart going. We packaged her up, took her to the Mater, and they'd invented a drug at that time called Mexatil. And for her heart condition, she received Mexatil, and she made a complete recovery. And the mother said, when she turns 18, would you come to her 18th birthday?
Is that jobs like that so gratifying that you've saved someone's life and then you get to be there on a landmark occasion?
Yeah, so I got to dance with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
Now we're good friends with her sister, Adele.
You haven't saved her life, have you?
No.
With Paul Keating.
Oh, yeah, Paul Keating. Came up to honour us for the earthquake, for rescuing Norm Duffy.
Right.
And at that meeting, it was held at Charlestown Square, and the Prime Minister asked me would I give a brief talk about the rescue of Norm Duffy, and then he replied, and that was that. He brought Anita with him. I remember that.
That's not the first time you met a Prime Minister. I think you met Bob Hawke too at the earthquake, was it?
Yeah, at the earthquake. I'd just come out of the bottom, and they were rigging me up to go up. They said there's either a couple of people still alive up in the fragmented, destroyed tops. Could you go up and get them or confirm whatever happened, you know?
Yeah.
So I went up in an EWP, and there was another chap came with me, but they were both dead up there. They were trapped under furniture that had been squashed in the room. So I came back down, and Bob Hawke's walking across the Centre Island, over here at the Workers' Club, and he just landed in a helicopter somewhere, and they brought him around the car, and he was walking across there, and he was saying, "Who's doing?" Well, must have been saying, "Who's doing what?" And they said, "Oh, this fella's just been up on top of and he's been down the bottom with people that've been rescued and whatever." So he came up and shook hands.
Wow. Not many people get to meet one Prime Minister, let alone two. Any other Prime Ministers you want to tell us about?
No.
Well, we got another one. There you go. Olympic torchbearer. That'd be proud as well. You know, not many people got to do that.
Yeah, they said because of Rwanda, they would like me to carry the Olympic torch in 2000.
Was it the longest trip? Did you just jog and go, I'm going to get as much, going to juice this out as much as I can?
Oh, no, it was just wonderful to be asked. You know, I was very honoured.
Where did you run from?
Up near Sandgate Cemetery.
Yep.
And I think I went for about 2 kilometres.
Yeah.
Before you hand the torch over to the next one.
Just in talking about all these different places, especially in Newcastle as well, when you drive around now, there wouldn't be a road where you'd go, I remember that, something happened there, something happened there. It's almost like...
It drives my wife mad.
Your daughters, Michelle and Jane, I suppose they saw the best and the worst of you, didn't they?
I think they did, yeah. You know, in your older years, you don't know how to convey to your daughters the mindset that you're in. You know, it was from time to time desperation, you know. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I could convey that love that a father should to his daughters in some of those periods.
Yeah.
And they stuck with me, and they were wonderful to me, and I love them dearly for it.
So I finished with a person you pulled out of a car crash and resuscitated. He wrote a letter to thank you, and now he's a Qantas pilot. Oh. And that's a little bit like that girl, isn't it? You know, like it's almost like
Shana.
You've seen someone, you've saved a life, and you've seen this person go on and do something really worthy with their life.
Oh, it was wonderful, but I think the thing that I often thought about was the time gap that occurred. This was a job on City Road, about 11 o'clock at night, in a very nice Mercedes Benz had cleaned up a telegraph pole there at high speed, and the driver was trapped. It was this young bloke in the driver's seat, and he had severe head injuries, and the back window had partially come out, so I climbed in over the boot, because when you put a tube into someone's lungs, you've got to be able to get the blade of this device into their mouth, lift their mouth, and then put the tube down in through their vocal cords into their lungs. So laying on my stomach and in the back seat, after getting through the window, I was able to achieve that. Tied the tube in, and then said, you know, to rescue, can you now extricate the two of us? they said later on, because of the timely intervention of the tube, you preserved his oxygen concentration, and so he didn't suffer any brain dysfunction. And so I took it as one of those jobs you do and get on with things, you know. 8 years later, the superintendent called me in and he said, "I've got a very strange request here," but he said, "It's addressed to you and I'd like to read it out to you." So he read it out and he said that the young fellow was so thankful from the stupid thing he did as a boy with his dad's car. He's now have gone on to complete his tertiary education and become a Qantas pilot.
Wow.
So he wanted to thank me for saving his life to become a Qantas pilot.
Beautiful. We'll just finish off with a big thank you to our fantastic supporters, Purnell Trophies at Broadmeadow. If you're looking for quality trophies, medals, plaques, perpetual awards or custom engraving, these are the people to see, whether it's your local sporting clubs, schools, businesses, awards nights, or community events. Now, Purnell Trophies has got you a trophy, Alan. Purnell Trophies has been helping people celebrate achievements for 57 years with outstanding service and top quality products. They understand that every award tells a story and they'll make sure yours looks every bit as special as the moment it's celebrating. You've had a few awards in your time, Alan. There's another one. And big thank you to Purnell Trophies, and they're proud supporters of Incredible Lives with Cainey. And they were actually the guys that put me in touch to say, you need to speak to Alan Playford. And
isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Yeah. Young Connor.
Connor, yes.
What a dynamic young bloke he is.
He is.
I'll say.
Loves the podcast, but yeah, he said, you need to get this guy on. And I said, I'll have a look at that. And I'm so glad he did. So thank you to Connor and also everyone at Purnell Trophies. Alan Playford, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Incredible Lives, because you capitulate everything that an incredible life is.
Thank you, Michael. I can't say thank you enough, and all the best to you and your career.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay, and thank you for this. That's wonderful. That'll go on the
on the mantelpiece. Thanks, Alan.
Okay, thank you, Michael.